Hello, Honors 10 students. Today we're going to work on our first practice quiz for our Nouns grammar unit. So I'm in Notability, as you should be, and I am looking at the last page of the Nouns grammar packet where I see the practice quiz. If you haven't done so already, you need to follow the directions, which is draw one line under each noun, capitalize any proper nouns, and correctly pluralize the nouns in parentheses. So if you haven't already done this, pause this video, go ahead and do it, and then restart the video. So you want to test yourself here. You want to see how ready you are for this real quiz. So take a minute to go through and see how you do on this, and then restart the video and we'll go over it together. All right, so the first thing that you need to do on your actual quiz coming up, the first skill that you need to master for the Nouns grammar unit is identifying nouns in a sentence. So you're going to draw one line under each noun. So let's just review and make sure we understand what nouns are. Nouns are a person, place, or thing. So let's take a look at this first sentence. The first noun we see here is Jane. The next noun, friends. And then the next noun, Camp Hope, and fox. So Jane here is a person, friends are a person, Camp Hope is a place, and a fox is a thing. Now some of you may have also underlined I, we, and we here. Now these are not actually nouns, and you don't want to underline these. These are pronouns. We're going to get into these later. Pronouns are similar to nouns in that they take the place of nouns, but they're actually a different part of speech. So if you underline those, make sure you make a note to yourself. That's why we do the practice quiz. That way you don't make this mistake on the real quiz. All right, let's take a look at the next sentence. In the next sentence, we need to have underlined president, which is a person, and key club, which is a thing. And then in our third sentence, we have book, a thing, Harry Potter, a specific kind of book, CD, a thing, tomato, a thing, journey, a thing, and California, a place. Now sometimes nouns are super straightforward, and other times they can be a little tricky. For example, the noun journey. Some nouns can be used as both a noun and a verb. So I could take a journey to California, or I could journey to California. I journeyed to California. They sound really similar, but in one case, one's being used as a noun, and in the other, it's being used as a verb. So if you're ever uncertain of whether or not something is actually a noun, a good way to test yourself is to use an article in front of the word. So an example of an article is a or the. So if you can successfully put an article in front of the word, it is a noun. So I could take a journey to California. That makes perfect sense. So I actually have a noun here. Jane is a friend. That makes sense. So I actually have a noun here. I journeyed to California. That doesn't make sense. So in this case, I know journey is not actually being used as a noun. All right, next thing that you guys need to do on your upcoming quiz is capitalize any proper nouns. So let's review the difference between proper and common nouns. So a proper noun is a specific noun, and as such it gets capitalized, whereas a common noun is a general term for something and it stays lowercase. So for example, dog is a general term that describes lots of different animals that live in many of our homes. However, Fluffy is a specific dog, so it needs to get capitalized. Mountain, that's general. There are lots of mountains, so I'm not going to capitalize it. It's a common noun. However, Mount Rushmore, now I want to capitalize mountain because I'm talking about a specific type of mountain, a specific name. So names and specific things are proper nouns and as such need to be capitalized. So let's take a look at where we see some of these proper nouns. The first one that we see here is Jane. Jane is a girl. Girl is a general term, but Jane is a specific type of girl, and so as such it needs to get capitalized. I is also a specific person that we're referring to here and needs to get capitalized. Camp Hope. We're talking about something specific, so we need to capitalize it. If it just said Jane and I became friends when we met at camp, I'm not going to capitalize camp because camp is a general term that could refer to any number of places. But because I'm talking about a specific camp, the name Camp Hope, it needs to be capitalized. Next up, we see Key Club. Again, if I just said club, I wouldn't capitalize it. But because I say Key Club, it's a specific thing here, and it needs to be capitalized. Same thing with Harry Potter. I'm talking here about a specific book, and so it needs to be capitalized. And then last but not least, we see California, which is a specific state and needs to be capitalized. Now, one that's kind of tricky here is president. President here is being used as a general term, so it's not going to get capitalized. The only time you're going to capitalize words like this is when they're being used as part of a title or referring to a specific person. So for example, if I had the sentence that said, President Donald Trump gave a speech last night. Because this is being used now as a title, I need to capitalize president. However, if I rewrote the sentence and I said, Donald Trump, President of the United States, gave a speech last night, now president is no longer being used as part of his name, as part of his specific title. So I'm no longer going to capitalize it. This is similar to words like doctor or captain. And sometimes these can get a little tricky. So if I said, I talked to Dr. Johnson yesterday because I've been struggling with depression. Doctor is part of the title. It's referring to a specific person, Dr. Johnson, so I'm going to capitalize it. If instead I said Marie Johnson is a doctor, I'm not going to capitalize doctor because now I'm just using it as a general term to describe her profession, not as part of her title. All right, last thing that you guys need to do on your upcoming quiz is correctly pluralize nouns. So again, let's just take a minute to review the rules for plural. So the general rule for making a noun plural is to add an S. So let's go back to this example of president. How would I make president plural? I would just add an S. And now we are done, except there are always exceptions. Thank you, English language, for that. So let's go over a couple of these exceptions. If a word ends in CH, S, Z, SH, or X, this is an exception. You add ES to the end rather than just an S. If a word ends in a Y, you need to look at the letter before the Y to determine what to do. If you have a vowel, right, a word like A-E-I-O-U before the Y, then you're going to add an S. You're going to follow the general rule. However, if you have a consonant before, you're going to drop the Y and add an I and then add ES. And then last but not least, our favorite, the O. If the word ends in an O, it's kind of just like you're not sure. You got to memorize these because there's no specific rule. There are many words in our language, like photo, for example, that take an S. However, there are many other words in our language, like potato, that take an ES. So with words that end in O, there's no specific rule. Generally, you just add an S, except for the exceptions. So what I would encourage you guys to do is just look over the list of common exceptions to ES and memorize those. And any others, most likely you're just going to add an S. All right, so let's go back up here and take a look at these words that we need to make plural. So the first one we see is fox. Notice fox ends in an X, so it's one of the exceptions. So in order to make this plural, I need to add an ES. Next we have book. Book ends in a K. That's not an exception, so we're just going to follow the rule and add an S. Then we see CD. Sometimes when you guys see words that are a little different, like CD, you think that you should do something different, but that's not the case. Still follow the rule. CD ends in a D, it's not an exception, so we're just going to add an S. Notice I didn't put in an apostrophe, I didn't put in an extra space, I just put a small S right after CD. So if I put an apostrophe, then I'm making it possessive, which is saying something completely different. I don't want the CDs to own anything. I want the CDs to be plural. And since it ends in a D, I'm just going to follow the typical rule. Then we see tomato. So notice tomato is one that ends in an O, and it is one of the exceptions. So I need to add an ES. Another really common one that's often misspelled is hero. Hero is another exception that takes an ES. However, like I said, lots of common words that end in O just take an S. So sometimes it's best to memorize which ones take the ES, like tomatoes, potatoes, heroes, some of these more common words, so you don't misspell them. And then journey. So notice journey ends in a Y. So I need to look at the letter right before the Y, and we have a vowel. So because I have a vowel, I'm just going to add an S here. And think of it this way. If I wrote it like that, that just looks weird. So when you see a vowel before your Y, you're going to just add an S. All right, guys, I hope this helped. These are the specific things that you're going to need to do on your upcoming quiz. So if any of these were confusing or you missed them or you still didn't understand, make sure you go back and reread that section of Grammar Girl, do some of the practice exercises ahead above this, or definitely reach out to us. Have a great rest of the day.